Welcome to the Sealed Pages. We've opened the covers on a truly compelling and, I think, essential work for the modern mind. Feroz Anka's philosophical, poetic reflection, Lines of the Void. The fragile boundaries of symbols and perception between reality and nothingness.
It is a remarkable journey, and what really distinguishes this work and our deep dive today is that this book isn't designed to be, an academic exercise.
No, not at all.
It's not a rigorous textbook you read for data.
Yeah.
He calls it an ontological reflective narrative. It's structured as a 6-chapter inner journey with this profound closing section, Reality Redefined. Anka is really guiding us to question the very fabric of how we experience life itself.
Absolutely. And the author's background, I find, provides such a fascinating context for this exploration. I mean, Anka spent years immersed in the deeply structured, often ambiguous world of complex IT landscapes.
Right.
Software engineering, digital transformation, leading these huge international platforms. His daily professional craft was literally translating ambiguity into measurable clarity.
Setting roadmaps, hitting KPIs.
Exactly. Navigating these massive organizational systems.
And that precise analytical mind, having mastered that world of structure, he then realized its critical limitation. He found that the essential deep questions of human existence, questions about meaning, about identity, about finding that inner stillness, they just don't fit into a spreadsheet. They can't be solved by stakeholder alignment or, product delivery roadmap. His writing, therefore, it sits at this fascinating intersection where that rigorous analytical precision meets a deep and often really startling intuition.
The core premise is just distilled with devastating clarity. The idea is that we have built a world out of symbols, calendars, money, language, our professional roles. And crucially, we have begun to mistake these symbols for reality itself.
Yes.
And the substitution creates what he calls a prison of perception. So the book's mission is fundamentally one of liberation. It's about guiding the reader back to the silence and the wholeness that exists naturally, beyond all these intellectual and societal constructions.
And this guidance is so atmospheric. The book's structure itself actually mirrors the process of unmasking. Each stage invites you, the reader, deeper into the subtle process of dismantling your established world.
That's a journey.
It's an approach that's focused entirely on discovery through intuition. It offers space for your own answers rather than imposing some new philosophical dogma. It's really an invitation to walk a path, understanding that the truth is often found on the journey, not at the destination.
That sentiment perfectly sets the tone for the threshold of our journey. Let's start with the very first line of the book, which sets that emotional resonance immediately. The opening verse states, "Everything begins with a line. What is named, defined, and measured never holds the whole of truth."
And that immediately connects with a fundamental, often unacknowledged feeling of modern life. This feeling that our reality, though it seems so ordered, feels fractured, it feels incomplete. The line, whether it's a border, a definition, or a timeline, it offers the mind comfort. But it does so at the cost of excluding the infinite possibilities that lie just beyond it. Anka warns that, and I'm quoting here, "The human being constructs a world from symbols, yet the world they build imprisons them."
It's the realization that the very tools we created for order have become chains. The invitation, therefore, is not to try and fix the broken pieces of our constructed reality, but rather, as he says, to see the wholeness that lies beyond them. This is a call for a fundamental shift in perception, moving away from fixing the symptoms and toward addressing the root cause.
Indeed. That single reflection, reality is always beyond the line. That serves as the architectural foundation for the entire book. The core conflict isn't with some external enemy, but with the very tools of our own making.
The tools we built to save ourselves.
Exactly. And the process requires cultivating a different kind of awareness, learning to perceive not just with the analytical eye that measures and categorizes, but with intuition. It requires recognizing that the ultimate truth is often hidden, waiting just beyond the boundaries of what we currently accept as I or mine.
And the physical book itself, the cover art, serves as such a powerful atmospheric doorway into this journey. We see this striking image, a cracked, almost expressionless face.
It is instantly evocative, isn't it? That solitary figure.
Yeah.
It's a direct representation of the masks the book explores. It is the self that has been set aside or maybe broken open by the very roles and societal demands it tried to fulfill.
The cracks are key.
The cracks are crucial. They're not signs of permanent breakage, but they're hints that light, the true self, is trying to break through that social facade.
Conceptually, that cracked face represents the self fractured by its own rules, or maybe more optimistically, the self in the process of breaking free from those constraints. And if you look at the subtle design, those faint branching lines overlaid across that dark palette, they echo the central, persistent question of the work. Are we walking on solid, undeniable reality, or are we navigating a precarious path made of these fragile, temporary lines we drew to map over the unknown?
The entire mood established by the cover art reflects that internal process, moving beyond rigid symbols and fixed identities toward that expansive void where true reality resides, the solitary figure walking toward a dim, borderless horizon. It suggests that this path to authenticity is often uncertain. It requires immense courage to step out of those defined, safe spaces and into the quiet unknown where reality begins its silent whisper.
That whispered reality is what stage one, the power of symbols, immediately tries to reveal by, well, by demolishing our fundamental assumptions. This chapter centers around the classic but deeply relevant map and the territory metaphor.
Humanity, in its earliest stages, was forced to create symbols, language, calendars, currency, to bring some order to the chaotic, unpredictable flow of nature. They were survival tools.
Simple tools.
Simple tools. Anka's powerful argument, though, is that over time, these tools have metastasized. They're no longer just guiding lights. They have become this pervasive, confining prison that governs every aspect of the modern human mind.
The map's inherent function is to simplify reality. This simplification is necessary for organization, for communication, but it comes at a tremendous cost.
The loss of richness?
The loss of reality's richness. The map shows the coordinates and boundaries of a mountain range, but as the book challenges us, can a map convey the smell of the damp earth, the feeling of the wind on your skin, or the silent, immense scale of that landscape?
Of course not. It can't. The map, by necessity, has to emit the soul of the real world. We become obsessed with optimizing the lines on the map, the distance, the efficiency, while completely forgetting the actual experience of the terrain.
And this illusion is perhaps most acute in our abstract, high-stakes systems. Chapter 1 dedicates significant focus to how money and time have catastrophically transitioned from being mere means of transaction and measurement into being the ends themselves.
Let's really unpack that money paradox. Money was invented as a straightforward medium of exchange, a fluid way to facilitate trade. But in the contemporary world, money, especially digital money, that abstract symbol, it functions as an idol.
A complete idol. It defines a person's worth, their status, their access to power. The symbol has been placed squarely in front of and often totally obscures reality.
And think about the psychological consequence of that. We chase the digital sign, the number of the bank account, the stock price, and this chase generates constant dissatisfaction and anxiety. Anka argues that true richness resides in the tangible, fundamental resources provided by nature and in the strength of human cooperation.
Like what?
Well, clean air, fertile soil, access to pure water, and profound solidarity. Yet these vital, non-negotiable values are consistently forgotten in the compulsive pursuit of the symbol.
And this leads to that powerful insight. The contemporary economic crisis is often perceived as a shortage of money, a shortage of abstract symbols, while the tangible natural resources themselves may still be abundant.
It's an incredible contradiction.
It is. We have the trees, but we don't have the capital to build. We have the food, but we don't have the money to buy it. This confusion, this prioritizing of the abstract symbol over the physical resource, is what makes the system so fragile and so often cruel.
And if we fail to question the power that abstract symbol holds over our emotional and professional lives, we are perpetually trapped. The anxiety of being broke is rarely about immediate physical survival, at least in the developed world. It's about the fear of losing status, losing the symbol, and the subsequent psychological unmooring that follows.
It's a symbolic death.
It is. And that realization that our primary financial stress is symbolic, that is the first step toward breaking down the perceived prison walls.
A similar transformation has occurred with time. We have natural time, which is experienced viscerally through the rhythm of the sun, the seasons, the human breath, and the natural flow of the living world. Yet the modern world is overwhelmingly governed by mechanical time.
Which has virtually erased our native sense of rhythm.
Completely. Mechanical time is the ticking clock, the scheduled meeting, the calendar slot. It fragments life, introducing this relentless internalized pressure. This creates the constant low-grade anxiety of feeling like we are perpetually catching up.
That time is a limited resource that is always slipping away.
Always. The contrast Anka draws is so vivid. The watch in the city dictates your pressure to be on time for a meeting, while the forest invites you to feel time through the slow, inevitable dance of leaves in the wind.
One experience is entirely about stress and scarcity. The other is about acceptance and flow. It's a completely different way of being.
This tension between pressure and flow is absolutely critical. Imagine a high-performing professional whose day is governed by 5-minute increments, back-to-back video calls, tightly scheduled deliverables. They may be highly productive in terms of output, but they are living in a state of chronic symbolic scarcity.
And the book suggests that by intentionally stepping away from that TikTok, by reclaiming natural time, even for a few moments, we can drastically reduce that psychological burden.
But perhaps the most pervasive and insidious prison is language itself. Language is our supreme tool for expression, for collaboration, for knowledge transfer. Yet it simultaneously acts as a profound structure that restricts the very thoughts it attempts to express.
Mm-hmm.
Anka reminds us of Wittgenstein's famous dictum: "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." The act of naming something, whether it's a complex emotional state like grief or an abstract concept like joy or a simple entity like a tree, is simultaneously an act of imposition.
It imposes a limit, a finite box.
It does. It simplifies the vast, rich, uncontainable experience and thereby loses its essential depth.
Think about the word love. We use that one word to cover everything from platonic affection to intense romantic passion, from a deep familial bond to ecstatic spiritual connection. The word provides a convenient label, but it traps the reality of the emotion inside a standardized verbal container. It prevents us from sensing its true, boundless complexity.
The richness is lost.
The richness of a felt experience is always diminished when we reduce it to a verbal line.
And this is why the path beyond symbols, particularly beyond language, becomes so vital. Anka highlights the necessity of silence.
And silence is presented not as an absence of noise, but as a space of direct understanding. It bypasses the limiting analytical structure of words, creating the capacity to hear what he calls the quiet music of the universe.
Silence is the medium where the wholeness that words cannot capture begins to communicate. When we are caught in the loop of defining, arguing, and labeling, we are trapped in the map.
But when we intentionally cease that inner dialogue and enter silence, we are stepping into the territory itself. It is the space where intuition, which Anka champions, can finally be heard, undistorted by linguistic constraints.
So if stage 1 exposed the external prisons of the map and the clock, stage 2 turns the lens inward. It focuses on self and masks the internal prison created by our own definitions. The central, unavoidable inquiry here is, who am I?
This section offers a brilliant, concise analysis of the historical philosophical tension surrounding identity. The Western perspective, famously rooted in Descartes' cogito ergo sum.
I think, therefore I am.
Right. It defines existence through the ability to reason and confines the self largely within the boundaries of the body and the mind. Identity, in this stream, is often reduced to external, measurable metrics: the job title, the accomplishments, the social role. I am a successful engineer.
Which leads to an individualistic, egocentric approach where the self is constantly performing to justify its existence based on those external metrics. But this approach is placed in direct tension with the Eastern perspective. Here, the self is viewed holistically.
Not as a separate entity.
No, but as an expression of the entire universe.
In Hinduism, for instance, Atman, the individual soul, is ultimately seen as one with Brahman, the universal soul. The self is not isolated, it is a manifestation of the cosmos. Similarly, Zen Buddhism challenges the entire notion of the separate self as an illusion, arguing that clinging to this boundary is the primary source of human suffering.
Right. Practices like meditation are designed precisely to transcend that perceived boundary and achieve a sense of universal oneness.
The beauty of Anka's synthesis is that he doesn't reject either view, but suggests the authentic self exists in a constant flow that unites these two poles. We are both independent existences, unique instruments, and simultaneously part of a greater universal symphony.
And the anxiety comes when we forget the symphony and obsess only over our isolated note.
And that obsession is fueled by what he calls the traps of the ego and social roles. The ego constructs identity based on property, acquisition, and, most powerfully in the modern context, the incessant need for social approval.
We fear losing our titles, our possessions, our professional status.
This fear is the engine of chronic anxiety. When we define ourselves primarily through a career, the symbol of productivity or success, we inherently confine ourselves to the limits of that identity. The need for external validation, whether it's the applause of a boss or the digital likes on social media, turns approval into the sole measure of self-worth.
And if that approval is missing,
The sense of self-worth can collapse, leading to profound feelings of emptiness or worthlessness.
social roles are the visible manifestations of this trap, the masks we wear to function and gain acceptance. The book points out that roles like leader, parent, or expert are defined by what society demands, and they often suppress our personal truth.
And maintaining these demanding facades leads to chronic pressure and significant mental exhaustion.
Consider the authoritarian leader, for example. That role demands emotional invulnerability, decisiveness, and rigid control. This person must constantly suppress any personal vulnerability, doubt, or simple human desire purely to uphold the demands of the leader mask.
And that mask, while it offers temporary power, ultimately obscures the true self and separates them from genuine connection.
The journey, therefore, demands moving beyond masks. The text references Sartre, suggesting that freedom isn't found in creating a better mask, but in the conscious, courageous act of acknowledging the roles we play and then stepping past them.
It's about redefining existence outside of external categorization.
But this is where the conversation needs to get real, I think. It sounds beautiful philosophically, but stepping out of the professional identity that provides security and income, that requires immense courage. How does a person navigate this transition without creating chaos?
That's the core challenge. Anka says that letting go of the mask inevitably brings uncertainty and vulnerability. We are defined by what we do. If we stop doing, who are we?
Right.
True freedom, however, begins when we face that vulnerability, choosing acceptance over resistance. It is the realization that the self is vast, experienced beyond any single definition, leading to that profound, liberating realization. Perhaps you are only a void, and in that void, everything is possible.
So the void isn't emptiness.
It's unconstrained potential.
That reframing of the void is critical. It suggests that shedding the mask isn't an end, but a necessary clearing of the stage. The energy that was previously spent on maintaining the performance can now be directed toward authentic creation.
Exactly. And if we accept that our identity is often a performance, stage 3 asks us to examine the very containers we inhabit, time and space. Anka explores the paradox of time and space, revisiting time through the dichotomy of linear versus cyclical perception.
The Western linear model, which dominates our modern mindset, views time as an arrow moving relentlessly forward.
Yes.
Rooted in Judeo-Christian narratives and scientific models of progress, creation, evolution, final judgment, this model inherently generates anxiety.
It really does.
It demands continuous, measurable progress and generates the perpetual pressure of, I need to reach my goal as soon as possible.
This relentless forward push prevents us from ever truly inhabiting the present. We are constantly recalling past failures with regret or projecting future achievements with anxiety. The person obsessed with their next career milestone misses the simple, immediate beauty of the instant, the taste of their food, the sunlight on their face, the simple act of breathing.
The present moment is treated merely as a bridge to the future,
Devoid of any intrinsic value. And the practical consequence is burnout. If the only value of now is to serve the needs of later, the present moment becomes a site of perpetual stress. We are always running against the clock.
Conversely, the Eastern cyclical model, which aligns time with nature's rhythms, the seasons, the breath, the cycles of life and death, offers a powerful antidote. This view, seen in concepts like samsara and karma, suggests a continuity where nothing truly begins or ends.
It only transforms and repeats. This non-judgmental continuity encourages a much calmer, less hurried dwelling in the present.
The synthesis, Anka argues, is found in the power of now, a Taoist perspective. The past is an echo, the future is a dream. The only reality that ever truly exists is the now. The challenge, of course, is integrating this understanding into a life defined by linear deadlines.
The river metaphor for Tao is the perfect illustrative device. The current flow is the only reality. Tao teaches non-resistance. To flow like the river that curves, falls, and rises according to the shape of the rocks it encounters. We must actively let go of the burden of the past, which is guilt, and the paralyzing fear of the future, which is anxiety.
The river doesn't care where yesterday's water went.
Not at all.
But is this a passive acceptance or a form of active engagement? If I have a major presentation tomorrow, the future is not merely a dream, it's a necessary reality I must prepare for.
That is the crucial distinction. Non-resistance, or flow, is not about inaction. It's about acting without strain, without forcing the outcome. The energy we spend resisting what is, the current reality, the timeline, the obstacles, that's the energy that causes exhaustion. When you stop resisting the need to prepare for the presentation and simply focus intensely on the task at hand, you enter flow.
The Zen master's riddle perfectly cuts through this mental clutter. When asked, "Can you taste the water in this glass? If you cannot notice it now, when will you notice it?" It immediately brings us out of our past and future narrative loops.
Awakening, the book insists, is only possible in this very immediate moment. This allows us to find lightness. When we stop resisting the flow, we stop struggling like a leaf caught in the current and simply yield to the stream. This surrender allows the natural rhythm of life to take over, which is vastly more powerful than the individual's will. He asks, the past is a shadow, the future, a dream. But what about now? Have you ever felt it, truly lived this moment?
Following the deconstruction of time, Anka shifts to the subtleties of space, showing that even our spatial understanding is deeply symbolic.
The Western perception of space is primarily that of physical boundary, separation, and measurable extension. It is strongly tied to concepts of private property.
This is my space. I own this domain.
Exactly. Walls offer psychological safety, but they are also agents of separation, contributing subtly to a sense of isolation or loneliness.
This Cartesian reductionist view defines space as an arena for independent, competitive entities, reinforcing the sense of me versus other. Think of an office environment. The personal items, the walls, the assigned desk, they create a sense of belonging for the individual, but that belonging is predicated on a subtle, constant separation from the collective whole.
The Eastern view, however, radically dismantles this separation. Space is not seen as an empty vacuum to be filled or separated, but it's a field of wholeness, connection, and constant energy. Everything is woven together. Feng Shui, for example, treats space as a spiritual and energetic field through which qi flows.
So space is not a boundary to be defended,
But a bond, a meeting point, a nexus of connectivity. The lesson here is that our external environment is fundamentally shaped by our internal perception. If we perceive ourselves as isolated, space feels like a limiting wall. If we recognize ourselves as fundamentally intertwined and part of a living tapestry, space becomes an undeniable connection.
And that tension is the key insight. Space is neither only a boundary nor only a bond. It is the dynamic interplay between the two. The ultimate freedom in space is achieved when we feel equally at home, sitting in our clearly defined office, as we do standing alone under the open, borderless sky.
Stage 4 then expands this perspective dramatically outward to nature's power and the human being, focusing on the deep, historic, ecological rupture.
For millennia, life was lived in harmony, the human being inherently a part of the natural world.
The rupture began when humanity transitioned from being a part of nature to perceiving itself as its master,
Yeah.
viewing the natural world solely through the lens of a resource or commodity.
And this was not just a physical change replacing forests with asphalt, but a profound spiritual break. The sense of the sacred faded, the mountains ceased being an eternal presence and became merely stone to be quarried. The river, just an energy source.
And the emotional and psychological toll of this rupture is immense. When we separate ourselves from nature, we separate ourselves from our own essence, because, as the text argues, the human being is a fundamental extension of nature. We enclose ourselves in concrete and screens, effectively cutting ourselves off from the essential grounding roots in the soil.
The global ecological crisis, the loss of biodiversity, the polluted waters, is the external, visible outcome of this spiritual split. We try to control and dominate nature, but in doing so, we threaten our own stability.
When the balance of the external world breaks, our own inner balance collapses with it. The only way forward is through ecological awareness, a spiritual return to seeing nature not as something to exploit, but as something we inherently belong to.
This attempt at mastery is most potently expressed through the opportunities and dangers of technology, which is humanity's current primary tool for pushing the boundaries of the natural world.
Technology is presented as a double-edged blade. Used wisely, it is the key that democratizes knowledge, tearing down walls of privilege and providing global access to information. Yet this abundance introduced an unprecedented level of noise, distortion, and the risk of deep manipulation.
The sheer volume can paralyze you.
It overwhelms intuition.
We use it brilliantly to extend life, turning once fatal diseases into manageable conditions. We gain power over our lifespan. But Anka forces the essential existential question: as we extend the length of life through technology, are we maintaining or even preserving its quality and meaning?
And the connected world is another paradox. We can reach anyone globally in seconds, shrinking physical distance. Yet the connections often remain shallow, purely symbolic. As communication becomes easier, Are we losing the ability to truly deeply connect, favoring surface interaction over genuine intimacy?
The knife metaphor is used perfectly here. Technology itself is neutral. In the hands of a skilled surgeon, it saves lives and extends possibility. In the wrong hands, or used blindly, it becomes a weapon of mass distraction and disconnection.
And the challenge is viewing technology as a tool that must serve us, rather than allowing its rhythms and metrics to become the masters we serve. We are pulled away from the flow of natural time by screens and machine rhythms. Our hands, designed to touch soil, to grip, to feel the world, now primarily touch polished glass and keyboard keys.
We live increasingly divorced from the subtle, vital details.
The sunrise, the bird song, the scent of rain, we're dulling our essential sense of inner nature.
The antidote and the philosophical framework for reentry is learning from nature, the philosophical lessons of ecosystems. Nature is the quiet, perfect teacher of wholeness and harmony.
The foundational lesson is that of absolute connection and cooperation. An ecosystem demonstrates that nothing exists in isolation. Everything operates in perfect, complex harmony. The tree feeds the soil, the bee pollinates the flower. But the deeper lesson is the cycle of transformation.
Nothing is lost.
Nothing is lost. The falling leaf does not vanish. It becomes the rich nutrient for next spring's flower.
This teaches simplicity and patience, virtues often ignored by the human drive for endless accumulation and haste. The seed does not rush to become a tree. The river does not rush to the sea. They move with an inherent, perfect rhythm.
And life, Anka suggests, is meant to be lived in this natural rhythm, not in a state of frantic self-imposed haste. The ecological examples drives the point home profoundly. The wolfpack example illustrates that removing a single element, the wolf can collapse the entire system by allowing the deer population to overconsume the forest, changing the very geography of the riverbeds.
It stresses that we are nature's reflection. When we unbalance nature, we unbalance our own inner landscape professionally, emotionally, and physically.
Stage 5 then transitions powerfully into the order of chaos. Order, while providing necessary stability and safety, becomes rigid and suffocating when taken to an extreme. Chaos, conversely, is presented not as random destruction,
but as the raw source of dynamism, change, and creativity. The two forces are symbiotic. They require each other for health and evolution.
To illustrate this dynamic, the Joker archetype is introduced. The Joker is essential because he acts as a necessary mirror, exposing the false seriousness and self-imposed prison of rigid order. He forces the individual to confront their own masks and the arbitrary nature of the rules they have blindly obeyed.
The Joker's weapon is humor, the sharpest tool for demolishing something. This demolition is necessary destruction, breaking down obsolete structures, whether they are professional routines or personal expectations, to open the door to creation.
The mask the Joker wears is not meant for hiding. It is meant for revealing the truth hidden behind social norms and rigid personal identities. He reminds us that society, built on arbitrary rules and norms, often traps the individual in a performance. The Joker appears as a vital counterforce, making visible the absurdities, contradictions, and injustices that lie beneath the veneer of an orderly facade.
His chaos is the necessary kinetic energy required to break individuals free from rules to which they have unconsciously surrendered.
This analysis leads to the ultimate lesson of the universe's game, from seriousness to flow. Seriousness, Anka concludes, is a heavy weight the human mind unnecessarily places upon the stage of life, which is fundamentally a stage of play. The universe knows no seriousness, only flow, the natural dance of energy and rhythm.
The human tendency is to elevate life to a grand, solemn mission, full of duties and obligations. This pulls us away from the inherent nature of the game, confining our freedom.
The child plays the game for the sheer joy of the moment, fully immersed in the flow. The serious adult plays only for the competition, the external outcome, or the ultimate validation.
Flow is our natural state, the river's way of being. It means not resisting, but allowing the unfolding. Think of a musician. When they stop overthinking the technical structure of the notes and simply feel the melody, the music flows naturally and effortlessly.
That is the essence of flow life, transforms from a burdensome duty into a work of art.
And that transition is directly enabled by addressing the final duality in stage 6, the dilemma of freedom and control. The book argues that the deep human desire for control is driven primarily by the fear of uncertainty, but it remains almost entirely an illusion.
We cling fiercely to control, meticulously planning work, trying to manage relationships, designing the future. But the fundamental truth is that the universe simply does not submit to human will. The busy, highly organized individual whose routine is shattered by an unforeseen traffic incident or a sudden illness is instantly confronted with a reality they cannot force or manage.
This fear of losing control fuels an endless, draining, and ultimately futile loop of management. Every attempt to control always carries the inherent risk of disappointment and further anxiety, because the flow of life is infinitely more complex and unpredictable than any single human plan.
Anka redirects us. True control isn't about forcing things into our design, but about understanding the nature of things and moving in harmony with that nature. The classic sailboat metaphor illustrates this beautifully.
Right. The sailor cannot control the wind, the external flow, but freedom is found in the ability to adjust the sail, aligning their effort with the existing current. This act of acceptance opens the true door to freedom.
This acceptance is the heart of Taoist flow, the secret of true freedom. Here we encounter the principle of Wu Wei, often translated as non-action, but more accurately meaning effortless or non-forcing action. It means moving in perfect, spontaneous harmony with the natural rhythm of life without strain or internal friction.
We spend immense, exhausting energy resisting the flow, fighting against delays, arguing with circumstances, dwelling on things we cannot change. Tao invites us to consciously lay down that burden of resistance.
The person who replaces the urge to control with a deep willingness to let things unfold naturally experiences profound liberation. Think of the student facing a high-stakes examination. If they obsess over the grade, the symbol of the outcome, they engage in frantic, strained preparation. If they shift their focus to the intrinsic value of learning and simply trust the process, the mind clears, the effort feels lighter, and the performance often improves naturally.
Freedom, in this context, is not an external achievement. It is our most natural, effortless state, found in accepting everything precisely as it is.
This awareness leads to letting go, the power of surrendering to the flow. Surrender is often mischaracterized as defeat or weakness, but Anka elevates it to an act of immense courage, a fundamental trust in the natural, rhythmic intelligence of existence.
It instantly frees the vast reservoir of energy previously spent on resistance.
The sand metaphor is the perfect, simple encapsulation of this paradox. If you hold sand tightly, with the fear of losing it, it inevitably slips through your closed fingers. But if you open your hand, allowing it to rest gently, it stays in your palm.
Surrender is that opening of the hand.
It is, embracing uncertainty and remaining open to the opportunities life brings. The true power lies in realizing that we often gain the most precisely when we cease trying to force the outcome.
The entire journey culminates in reality redefined. The final synthesis is clear. Reality is not a static object to be captured in a definition, but a constant, ever-shifting process. Perception, with its inherent limitations, functions perpetually like a limited map.
And that map must be treated not as a fixed artifact, but as a living document that must be constantly redrawn and updated. The profound concluding quote sums up the beautiful futility of seeking a final definition. The map can never be complete because reality itself is always in motion.
This leads us to the final universal vision of universal wholeness and the cosmic dance. We are asked to transcend the sense of separation that the symbols and masks imposed and realize we are not merely lonely observers, but intricate players within a vast interconnected web.
The universe is presented as a magnificent orchestra where the human being is simultaneously a single, unique note and also a vital part of the entire symphony. Our very composition, our bodies made of stardust, our minds reflecting cosmic patterns, confirms this profound connection.
Every turning season, every wave's movement is a tangible manifestation of this ultimate wholeness.
We are not alone. We are a necessary, inseparable link in the universal chain of connection. The final image is the cosmic dance between the human being and the universe. We are invited to quiet the mental noise and listen for the deep, resonant pulse of life itself.
And the dance is not about reaching a specific final result or destination,
but about savoring the rhythm itself, the process of existence. When we finally join this dance, the feeling of being a burdened individual dissolves into the lightness of being a living, spontaneous expression of the universe. This awareness is the ultimate destination where profound peace and lightness reside.
It has been a deeply complex yet beautifully reflective journey through the fragile architecture of our inner and outer worlds, moving beyond the static rigidity of maps and territories, consciously shedding the exhausting masks of the self, embracing the dynamic flow of time, and finally learning to dance with the necessary balance of chaos and order.
All the lines drawn throughout this book ultimately serve to point us toward the boundless void of true freedom.
For you, the contemplative, philosophically curious, or spiritually restless reader, this work offers not quick fix solutions, but essential orientation. It is a work best engaged with slowly.
Yes, not rushed through for answers, but used as a reflective companion. Take its core questions. To which symbols are you in bondage? Or, who would I be without my professional titles? And use them as prompts for deep personal reflection or journaling.
It is a profound guide that helps us realize we were never truly separate, that all the fractured pieces we thought defined us were always joined, always one. The final message is simple yet transformative. Stop trying so hard to understand reality and simply allow yourself to feel it.
And that feeling leads to the ultimate act of surrender and freedom, building on Anka's final thoughts. If we truly let go of the need to control the outcome, we find that the dance was already in motion.
Indeed. All those lines, masks, and cycles, the anxiety, the schedules, the roles, they have become just memories. What remains is only you and the universe's dance, and the dance will never end. Perhaps the most profound freedom isn't found in reaching the void, but in realizing you were already dancing before you started looking for the music.